Well, move on to the next question, and this is the last one about the hospital. It's not all going to be about the hospital. But a citizens group has put a charter issue on the ballot that would require a vote of the residents before council could close or reduce services at the hospital. Do you favor or oppose this measure, and why? And I guess we're starting with Mr. Began this time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the great thing about this is we have a bunch of different candidates with different points of view. I think reflects a lot what Lakewood's going through right now and has been going through. There are residents and obviously candidates alike that are on different sides of this issue. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor. Having the residents have their say, you know, on the board for Lakewood Alive, when we put the mission statements together, Lakewood's greatest asset is informed and engaged residents. So this is all good stuff and what we want to do. We want the residents to be involved in a vote. I do have to echo a little bit of some of the concerns that the current administration has about the wording that's been on there. What we don't want to do in any negotiation is tie anybody's hands. Mr. Metzger was just talking about how leaving something open that for the clinic to do whatever they want. Well, if we're going to further tie the hands of the administration in any negotiating that they could do, I think that's probably not good. So while I'm in favor of having the citizens vote on an issue as important as this, I think we have to be very careful on exactly what they are voting for.
Okay. Sam O'Leary?
Thanks. I have a pretty clear answer on this one, I think. I do not support the charter amendment issue that's been put forward. I absolutely support the right of the voters to decide, even the hospital issue, but I think that we already have that ability built into the charter. There's an existing referendum provision in the charter that would allow the electorate, if they felt so inclined, to refer any measure that council passes almost to referendum. So I think that we have the tools that we need in the toolbox already as an electorate, as a citizenry in Lakewood to engage directly on this issue. But I think that the charter amendment that's been put forward adds an additional layer of complication, even if the citizenry had was in agreement with council. It would still require an extensive process, possible cost to the city, and I think that we are better served letting the electorate truly decide for themselves, and I think that the best way to do that is to let them read what council has passed after council has passed it and decide at that point whether or not they want to hold a referendum on that.
Mr. Litton?
I, like the others, support the will of the people, whatever that would be. If they choose to pass a charter amendment, I would be obligated as a potential city councilman to uphold that charter in whatever form it's written. However, the charter amendment as it's currently written does have some concerns for me with regard to the wording, of course. With regard to, I said before how healthcare in Lakewood, if we're going to have it, we need a partner, and I fear that this charter amendment would do a lot of things to scare away potential partners down the road, both now and down the road.
Okay. Mr. Schneider?
Thank you. Bruce, you're at these council meetings, you're at the public meetings, you're out at city events. You see that there is a feeling amongst the public, whichever way you feel on the ultimate outcome of the hospital issue, that there hasn't been the proper transparency and accountability up to this point. And while council is making efforts to carry out the deliberations since the announcement of the deal in a public manner, the fact that this is still a debate, and we've got 3 questions in this debate about the hospital, shows you that I don't think folks are gaining the level of satisfaction with the process that had taken place up until January that they would hope. And I think that's what's brought about this amendment. An interesting byproduct of the amendment would be that with this public institution and public trust, it would almost require council to be in unison as to what outcome that they're advocating for, and that they deliver that message in an effective manner to the citizenry. And when you've got an ability for council to effectively communicate with the citizens to a satisfaction where they feel this is a transparent, accountable process, I'm in favor of such an effort.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
I appreciate the comments that have been made. It reminds me of the fact that we live in a democratic republic. Sometimes folks elect individuals to represent them, and sometimes they want to take it in their own hands. I completely agree with Councilman O'Leary's assessment that there currently is a provision in the Second Amended Charter that would allow for a referendum process in the case of the hospital or any other. So I'm not exactly sure if this proposed new tool, which just would offer the opportunity for a referendum, doesn't guarantee a referendum. I don't know if this new tool is actually better or worse than what we currently have in the charter. I tend to believe that what we have in the charter is adequate. I also think, though, that this is local government. I'm a ward councilman. I'm the tip of the sword. Sam, you're the tip of the sword. Others want to be the tips of the sword. I mean, we get the first phone calls before the mayor does. We get the last phone call. If we can't solve problems at this level, and if people start driving by City Hall looking at it through their window and saying, oh, those guys, they just don't know what's going on. We have a lot more to lose in Lakewood than the hospital. We have to work not only to preserve the process concerning Lakewood Hospital, but people's confidence that what goes on in that building by the folks that they elect to represent them is transparent, is authentic, is unbiased, isn't sort of swayed by who sits on what board or who's sort of got a hotline to an office somewhere. It just can't work like that. And I'm proud of council's role to date in slowing this thing down, getting our own unvarnished, objective viewpoint, and that's what I'm going to continue to fight for. Credibility in this process is paramount.
All right. And
I'm always seem like I'm the caboose on the train. You want to restate the question for me?
Oh,
please?
sure. It's a citizens group has put a charter issue on the ballot, on the November ballot, that, if passed, would require a vote of residents before council could close or reduce services at Lakewood Hospital.
Sure.
Do you favor or oppose this measure, and why?
Right. Well, I just want to say that I think that this vehicle that's been put out there for the voters is wholly entitled to the voters, right? People are trusted with the people in the public trust are bound by what the voters want to do, and they have every right to bring this to the table. And I think that it's wrong-headed the way it's structured, just as wrong-headed as some of these terms are in the letter of intent and other agreements that are presented by the Cleveland. So I feel like the mayor and city council and the entire city is being handcuffed by either side of the equation and not having the chance to really fully deliberate the issue. The die is cast now, and I know that had everybody gone back in time, it would be nice to have made the announcement about the direction that the clinic would like to take this and the city's role, and then immediately refer it over for administrative action and let council then immediately start holding public deliberation on it so that you can get the public input, and maybe it would have sidetracked some of the angst from opposition people, and maybe it wouldn't have, but here we are now, so there wasn't the opportunity really to fully percolate the issue now, back in the past. So I'm really not in favor of the vote. I think it's really a handcuff for any action that can be taken, just as much as the proposal from the clinic.
Okay. Are there any follow-up comments on this one? Okay.
I'll just say, Bruce, that I think the lawsuit and this potential charter amendment are born from people being frustrated by how the process has gone to date and the lack of transparency in the process up till January. I think people were caught off guard by this. I certainly was. I can look at the camera and tell the folks in Lakewood that I had no idea that there was going to be a press conference at the beginning of January announcing by the Cleveland Clinic that they were going to close our hospital. I had no indication of that. So that leads me to wonder a little bit. And I've told folks on a number of occasions, my job isn't to trust people who come before the committee of the whole and give testimony. My job is to verify. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I intend to continue to do. And I'm not making a whole lot of friends, but it's about verification of what's presented for us. We need A++ work for us to make our decision. And that's what I'm fighting for. We need to make the decision based on the best work possible. So there we are.
Okay. And does anybody, there were some references made, and I think I know what you're talking about because I followed this issue, but in terms of handcuffing the city, how do you think that, does anybody want to answer this, how they think it would handcuff the city?
Well, I could take a stab at it. I think it handcuffs the city in that there's a couple of different paths it follows. It puts, the charter amendment, I think, will put the city in a position to have to deal with the issues surrounding this potential redevelopment on a whole different plane than anybody's really equipped to right now. And the other issue is that should the sentiment in the community change down the road, because this is pretty much written in stone, should it pass, then a whole nother revote's got to be taken on it. And I think that that just is not timely for development that needs to take place. I think it's sort of wrong-headed in terms of trying to cast a situation in amber when we know that circumstances change. I mean, what happens when the next wave of healthcare trends come through and everybody goes, well, gosh, I guess we shouldn't have really locked it down like this, because now we need another facility being built because medical advances have gone so far, you know, another 10 years from now. So you just don't have any clue of the future.
Okay.